Yo, what's good, Lieutenant Diddlesworth? I'm your guide, Q. Welcome back to some Neckbeard Stories. I just want to make you guys aware, I know that a lot of these stories are fake. We checked these out for some entertainment. I will definitely make fun of the stories when they seem very fake, so just be prepared for anything, and let's get into it. I'm not even sure if this applies as a Neckbeard story, and that's why I'm putting it in the video. Check this out. In it to win it. Not even sure where to put this. Someone was talking about pick-me girls and it made me think of this. Something that happened the other day. I had just met these two guys, neighbors, friends, and was hanging out with them for several hours. I didn't feel any attraction or chemistry with either of them, and there was no flirting. The conversation was super neutral. I thought we were just hanging out like bros. Not implying that I'm one of the boys, just that it was totally not a female-male sexuality kind of dynamic. There was no tension, is what you're trying to say. Fast forward a bit, and I find out they're actually competing for me, apparently. One of the guys disclosed that the other guy was texting him to try to get him to leave so he could get a chance. Needless to say, that didn't happen, but it was so weird. I asked both of them to leave shortly afterwards. What is it that would make a man believe that if his competition left, I would just jump into bed with him apropos of absolutely nothing? What the fuck is this story doing on Neckbeard Stories with 98% upvotes? This is pretty much just somebody flexing about having two guys competing over her. Neither of them have any, major traits whatsoever other than the fact that they were silently competing over you. How is this a Neckbeard story? How did this get upvoted on the subreddit? Alright, this story is absolutely nuts, so I'm gonna need some opinions on this one. My brother is a neckbeard and my mom is an insane parent. So, as implied in the title, these people are my immediate family, and I want to start by saying that I love them both dearly, so please no hate to them. All that being said, the fact remains that my brother is a neckbeard and my mom is an insane parent. For a quick background, my brothers, twins, are technically my cousins by blood, but through the wildness that is custody, my mom raised them as my siblings from age 4. They were tragically premature, and they both have a crazy list of physical and mental issues because of it. The neckbeard brother, NB for short, is verbal and capable of taking care of himself enough to go to school and live a pretty much normal life. His mental health is unknown to me because my mom prefers to focus on physical things. My mom is also diagnosed with her own mental health issues that she ignores in favor of her own fragile physical well-being. I'm getting off track here, but that is pretty much all the info that matters. So I'm in my mid-20s and don't live at home anymore. My brothers have only recently turned 18 and my mother is working to get full custody as there's simply no way the twins will ever be able to live independently. NB has been displaying neckbeard behavior his whole life, dislike for hygiene, intense love of video games to the point that he will soil himself while playing, and the way he interacts with other people is hard to watch. He isn't mean or outright awful, you can just tell he isn't sure how to talk with others. I realized it had been some time since I had visited home a few weeks ago, so I stopped by and my mom, who I will choose to call DM, Delusional Mom, began to tell me something that nearly made me sick. DM, that brother of yours just won't listen to anything, always on that game. He went nearly 2 weeks without a bath. Ew, try taking his controller away. I do, he just plays in the water for a few minutes and then leaves the tub dirty as hell. It got to the point where I had to physically give him a bath and watch him brush his teeth. Record scratch. You bathed him? Yes. He is 18 years old and you gave his grown ass a bath? She saw no problem with what she was saying, as if she said she had to wash the dishes that he was meant to wash yesterday. I immediately tried to talk with my brother, telling him that he should not be okay with his mother cleaning him like that when he is fully capable of doing it himself. I tried to fight dirty and say that his evil twin, who is nonverbal and barely capable of walking, can run his own bathwater and clean himself with moderate supervision and assistance. Nothing I said seemed to matter to NB. It's faster when she does it, and I don't have to clean the tub. At that point, I realized this was a lost cause. If he wasn't willing to try cleaning himself, then there wasn't a point in trying to convince him. To my knowledge, this gross thing is still happening, and I don't know how to stop it, or if it's even my business, because I don't have to deal with NB and his horrendous body odor. TLDR, my insane parent gives my 18-year-old brother a bath. Alright, so I am almost stunned to speechlessness. I want to start off by saying I'm not stunned to speechlessness. I'm about to talk at you for a full minute. But anyway, I want to start off by saying that, like, this girl clearly knows her life situation more than we do, but this situation just feels really unfortunate to me. And, like, honestly, maybe, like, you're oversharing very personal problems to your family. Like, I know this is the internet, it's an anonymous post, nobody will probably know who is being talked about here, but like this sounds like a very personal issue to your family. Like your mother is clearly struggling, you've got two brothers who have like assorted problems that they're dealing with, and like I'm not trying to excuse your brother's behavior or excuse your mother's behavior, but I genuinely feel like your mom seems to be just trying her best and does not know what else to do whatsoever. I'm not saying that this was the right solution, I'm just saying that this seems like an extremely difficult situation to deal with like no right answers. If you have some right answers out there watching this video, please tell me, because I am at a loss. Alright, this is an interesting perspective. My neckbeard roommate in Germany. This is the story of a former roommate I had several years ago. I live in Germany, so I apologize in advance for any mistakes I make while writing this story. English is not my first language. This neckbeard's name was Hans, and I lived with him for 1 year after I graduated college. He and I shared an apartment with a third person. I had always thought Hans was a strange man, but I never tried to put him in any kind of category. In reading stories from this subreddit, though, I realized that Hans was most definitely a neckbeard. When I first met Hans, I'm gonna fuck up Hans and Hans the entire time, so just brace yourselves, I guess. When I first met Hans, nothing particularly strange jumped out to me. He was about average height and chubby, but nowhere near as fat as neckbeards seem to often get. Unlike the stereotype of neckbeards, Hans didn't stink. In fact, his hygiene was perfectly fine. Granted, Europe places less emphasis on personal hygiene than America does, so maybe by American standards, Hans would have been considered stinky. He did dress in some neckbeardy clothes, but I'll talk more about that later. What Hans lacked in neckbeardy appearance, though, he more than made up for with his actions and personality. Hans spent most of his free time playing video games, often World of Warcraft. On the weekends, he often played WoW for 15 hours a day. Hans also watched a lot of anime, sometimes in his room, sometimes on the TV in the living room, with the volume turned up. This was done with the ever-present unhealthy foods in his hand. On the topic of unhealthy foods, let me tell you about what Hans ate. While American neckbeards like Doritos and Mountain Dew, yes we do, of course we do, Hans preferred more German foods. He loved Crunchips. Why do those sound so good? I want some Crunchips right now. Which are German chips flavored with paprika. They taste similar to barbecue potato chips. He also ate a lot of Kinder brand chocolate. In place of Mountain Dew, Hans drank Spezi, which is a German soda which tastes like a mix of cola and orange flavor. I want to go to Germany just to be a German fat guy. When Hans' mother would come to visit, which was often, she would bring Lebkuchen, which are German cookies similar to gingerbread. Come to think of it, I don't think Hans ever ate a fruit or vegetable the entire year I knew him. He did sometimes make pasta or quesadillas in the kitchen, but he would always sit in front of the TV and eat them as he watched anime. I'm sure you can imagine the horrific bowel movements this man would generate as a result of this diet, and you would be correct. Hans easily spent 30 to 45 minutes on the toilet every morning. Hans worked in an electronics store during the time I knew him. He certainly knew a lot about televisions, computers, and gaming systems. But Hans thought of himself as far more intelligent than he actually was. He liked to talk about topics he knew very little about. I'm pretty sure most of Hans' information on these topics came from Wikipedia, as he would often have Wikipedia open on his computer. Have you ever seen the bro explaining meme? That's about what the conversation with Hans would feel like. He truly did fit the stereotype of neckbeards saying, "well actually," followed by almost certainly false information. Now, Hans considered himself as a Special Forces soldier, despite having zero training in any form of fighting style. Hans liked to wear these synthetic police pants with the big pockets. I'm not sure what he would call them in English, but you got the idea. He also wore black leather boots, which looked like he bought them online for less than $30. Knowing him, he probably did. Hans also liked Star Wars and video game shirts, which, combined with his pants and boots, made for a very unfashionable combination. The outfit was completed with one of Hans' hats. His favorite was his Dallas Cowboys hat, which was weird because he never had any interest in American football, not to mention the fact that we lived an entire ocean away from Texas. Hans always carried a knife. I always have my pocket knife with me too, but while mine is small and discreet, Hans was ugly, huge, and looked like it cost $10. No matter what was going on, that big stupid knife was always clipped in Hans's pants. When Hans wasn't playing WoW or defiling the toilet with his ungodly stools, he could sometimes be found in the living room practicing his fighting skills. Along with WoW, one of the games Hans liked was Metal Gear Solid, and he said he based his fighting moves on the main character, Solid Snake, in the game. Why this was the game he chose, I have no idea. But while Snake was a large, strong man who knew how to fight, Hans was a chubby man-child who had the skill and coordination of a drunken bear. I would see him swing his fists around at an imaginary assailant, then after a minute or two he would get out of breath and sit down to drink a cup of Spezi. Once he regained his breath, Hans would get back up and practice his knife fighting skills. This consisted of more of the same. He would stand there and wave his knife around to mimic fighting his assailant. The only good thing was that German laws prevented Hans from owning any hand weapons. Firearms is what I'm trying to say, sorry. If this had happened, I'm sure we would have ended up with the roof, floor, or walls accidentally getting vandalized with bullet holes. Hans was also a proud atheist. A significant number of people in Germany are atheist, but few match Hans's interest in talking about the subject or his complete scorn for those who believe in religion. Hans also had a shelf of extremely atheist books, and he would proudly discuss them with anyone who would listen. Hans called religious people Teletubby Zurichwinker, which roughly translates to one who waves back to Teletubbies. That's fucking kind of hilarious. I want to learn more German insults, please. And is apparently used to describe a person who is stupid or childish. I've lived in Germany my whole life, and Hans is the first person I've heard use this term. It does seem to be quite popular on the internet, though. I assure you it sounds nearly as ridiculous in German as it does in English. He would also go on rants to nobody in particular about how there being a god is impossible because it would violate the laws of thermodynamics. Not that Hans knew anything about thermodynamics, but that wouldn't stop him from talking about it. For all of Hans's weirdness, though, he mostly kept to himself and didn't bother me. As far as I know, he didn't stalk women or talk with them in a creepy way as many neckbeards seem to do. He was clearly a strange man, but he was pretty harmless. Hans wasn't nearly as bad a roommate as many neckbeards would be. He didn't stink, he never made a mess or anything like that. The more I think about it, the more I would realize I would be willing to have Hans as a roommate again. Well, anyway, thanks for reading my story, and I apologize again for any mistakes I've made while writing this. So I know that this story wasn't like the craziest neckbeard story ever, but I like it because it paints a picture of a real person that exists. Like, he's not a he fits some of the stereotypes, obviously, but he's not a full stereotype of a neckbeard. Like, he's a multi-dimensional person, and I feel like he could be a really chill dude if somebody just told him, hey, calm down on the aggressive atheism that turns people off, and maybe don't be so much of a know-it-all. Like, he could be a cool guy. I would like to see him practice his knife fighting skills. Maybe if he practiced more, he could get some good activity and stuff, and maybe get in a little bit of better shape. Hans could have a proud future ahead of him. Hey, if you like stories on this channel, I've got a whole playlist for stories read by me, and it's gonna pop up in the top right corner of your screen. I would also like to give a major shout out to Hannah, Matthew Kendall, Caitlin, Beth the Dork, Ashton Jacobson, June, Rocket Fist Rick, Alicia, Kennedy De Silvis, Tay P, Hyper Ninja Child, Jared D, Regrettable Stitches, Allison B, Kaya Bay, Brittany, and Katko, as well as everyone else you see on your screen for being a top tier channel member. I hope you're all doing super well out there, skating on to the best of your abilities, drinking a sufficient amount of water, and I'll see you super soon. Peace out, Cub Scouts.